The confrontation broke the sky in ways legend would later try and fail to render. Knull's advance arrived as a choir of absence. Symbiote tendrils licked across galaxies, swallowing light like a mouth closing, and entire star systems fell silent, as if someone had put a hand over the mouth of the universe. His heralds were not emissaries, but wounds. Planets turned black and whispered his creed into the void. Where symbiotes took root, the local physics reoriented. Light bent to the grammar of negation, and organisms unlearned their names. Galactus came not as a storm, but as inevitability made visible, a towering presence whose coming changed the vector of cosmic wind. Heralds that had once fled in terror now circled, awed and terrified. Entire constellations quivered when the power cosmic ordered itself around his hunger. He did not come to lecture Knull on ethics. He arrived because the ledger required transaction, and because something in the fabric of being resisted total erasure. Their first collision was a test of scales. Knull struck as he always had, direct, intimate, trying to write his will into the language of identity itself. The all-black lashed and tore, the blades cuts unmade the patterns of matter, and for an instant, Galactus bled metaphysically. Herald stilled, a shell of a world went soft and almost vanished, and the cosmic tide shivered. Knull's mouth opened with the serenity of someone correcting a mistake. He tried to fold the power cosmic into the same silence he used on lesser things, to convince the very idea of hunger to become an empty bracket. But Galactus was not merely energy to be named. He was the sediment of universes, an institutional mechanism whose function was intertwined with how the cosmos sustained complexity. He responded not by closing his eyes, but by rearranging the term. The power cosmic struck in a way Knull had not intended. It did not attempt a head-on metaphysical refutation, for Knull could not be argued out of his logic. Instead, Galactus enacted his principle. He began to feed, and the act of feeding was itself a kind of translation. When Galactus devoured a star near the edge of battle, his consumption did more than remove a light. It respecified energy into potential that would later seed new lattices, and that transformation radiated outward in a language Knull could not swallow. Symbiote voids attempted to latch onto Galactus, to corrupt the Eater. For a moment the horror seemed plausible. Imagine the all-void, turning the very principle of hunger into a corpse of purpose. But Galactus's appetite is not a simple stomach, it is a cosmic operation that metabolizes not only matter, but also meaning. Where Knull's erasure left no ledger entry, Galactus's consumption wrote one. The power cosmic, when poured into an unmaking, resignified absence as a different kind of potential. Practically, this meant Knull's corruption could not hold. When symbiotes tried to graft the Necrosword's logic onto stars already enrolled in Galactus's digestive architecture, the fundamental terms failed to line up. Knull's method was subtraction, Galactus's was conversion. The decisive move came when Galactus stopped resisting Knull's personal challenge and instead offered his function to the crisis. He began to feed, not on random suns, but on the zones of pure unmaking, ingesting pockets of all black, so that those pockets would be recorded and repurposed. In ingesting Knull's darkness, Galactus did not simply annihilate it. He integrated it into a larger process that rendered Knull's nihilism inert. Knull, confronted by the spectacle of his absence being translated into something the cosmos could work with, encountered a paradox he could not dissolve. His ethic depended on erasure being final, but finality had been made transformable. Rage became technique for him. He drove the Necrosword into Galactus's armor, and for a terrible instant, even the Eater flinched. Metal and void tangled. The blade tried to overwrite the power cosmic with a grammar of nullity. Galactus answered with the only thing that could be an answer. He fed more deliberately, letting the power cosmic flow through the wound and into the Necrosword itself. And as it did, the sword's edge began to sing a different song. Where Knull had aimed to make absence the ground, the power cosmic insisted on interpretation. The sword's bite, suffused now with cosmic metabolism, could not erase so long as its teeth were also recontextualized into something that would seed rather than silent. Knull, who had never been required to witness the repurposing of his annihilation, found his premise undermined. A universe that could make even absence into fodder for becoming refused to be rewritten into a zero. The final unmaking was not a glorious last stand. but a technical collapse of an ideology. As Galactus continued to digest and transmute, Knull's networks frayed, not because every symbiote was cut, but because the fundamental currency of his argument, finality, had been made fungible. With the Necrosword partially neutralized by cosmic reworking, Knull was stripped of the theological certainty that had animated him. He raged, he lashed, and he took blows that rent the dark around him. Yet Galactus's victory was not a slaughter so much as a conversion. The Devourer, having turned Knull's hunger into a ledger entry in which absence becomes feedstock for futures, left a universe scarred and altered, but alive. When the smoke settled and the constellations reassembled their narratives, the verdict was clear. Galactus had proved, not because he destroyed Knull in some absolute sense. Such metaphysical annihilation was a claim the cosmos itself would not dignify, but because he transformed Knull's absolute into a term the universe could repurpose. The Eater had consumed the Eater's enemy in the only way that matters to a system that values recurrence, by making meaning where cruelty had sought to unmake it. Galactus stood, bleeding and fed, a terrible steward of continuity. Knull recoiled, diminished in the particular sense that matters most to a being who trafficked in M. The final argument, written in starfire and the detritus of darkened worlds, favored the one who had the cosmic patience to convert negation into potential. In the slow before time, before names nested inside other names, and before the first fires learned to be suns, there was a mind that answered absence with agency and called itself Knull. He was not a god in the common sense, but a metaphysical thesis given consciousness, an insistence that the universe's primary error was its insistence on being anything at all. From that insistence, Knull shaped his instrument, the all-black Necrosword, which was not merely a weapon but a grammar of unmaking. When it bit into a cosmos-born thing, it excised not only flesh, but the right to be counted among things. Knull's genius was elegant cruelty. He made symbiotes, as syllables of his language, living black that could cloak and spread, and he taught those syllables to speak the one command he believed absolute: return to nothing. Whole pantheons that had mistaken themselves for permanence found their names erased. Celestials, who had once been the anchors and auditors of cosmic law, were shown to be bodies that could be opened like seams. The tragedy Knull loved was categorical. The brighter the world, the sweeter to erase. His is a philosophy of subtraction. It pronounces on being to exist is to be incomplete, and the only moral act is to remove that incompleteness by folding multiplicity back into the comforting singularity of the void. Around him his symbiote constellations grew, a black diaspora that made planets into hollow husks, a doctrine that infected organisms with an appetite for silence. Opposite this scorched, ascetic logic stood a different kind of ancient consequence. Galactus, not born as spite but as necessity, a cosmic predicate that the universe carried like a tap. While Knull's origin is rooted in prelapsarian absence, Galactus was born of an ending that begged for continuation. When one universe collapsed, there remained in its detritus not merely energy but a principle that some configurations must be devoured, so others might fall. Galactus's appetite codified and institutionalized. The power cosmic is method, and the devouring of worlds his imperfect sacrament. He is not cruelty in a moral sense, but a practical operation of balance. He takes so that accumulation does not ossify into annihilating incoherence. If Knull is the philosophical nihilist avowing that meaning should be extinguished, Galactus is the conservative mechanic of becoming, an agent that admits loss as part of a larger system of remaking. This opposition invites the central question: when two metaphysical schemes operate at full intensity and in the same field, which principle is more sustainable? Knull's strength is purity and economy. Denial scales for each star he snuffs. He increases the domain where absence holds true. His victories reify his ethic. They create momentum for further erasure. He can fracture the identities of gods and nations, turning memory into a weapon and turning the very concept of name into rubble. Knull's power is intimate and contagious. It spreads through contact, insinuating itself into the categorical furniture of reality. Galactus's power is diffuse and systemic. He can contend with celestials, marshal the power cosmic to rework matter and energy, and most crucially he enacts a different temporal logic. Whereas Knull wants to stop the clock, Galactus is the clock's servitor. He accepts that things will be consumed and prefers that consumption happen under visible law, so that the remains can become raw material for new arrangement. The philosophical friction between them is therefore not simply destruction versus preservation, but a dispute about the metaphysics of consequence. Knull says a universe unmade is pure and honest. Remove the confusion of Galactus replies, erasure without transformation is loss. The cosmos persists by turning endings into inputs for futures. That reply is not merely rhetorical. It is an operational claim about how systems absorb shocks and whether an act of unmaking can be made irreversible. There is also a subtle adjudication. Meaning is not only what is present, but how presence can be reinterpreted. A world eaten by Galactus is registered in cosmic ledger as transmuted. Its atoms will narrate new structure. A world unmade by Knull is excised, so that no narrative can grow from its ashes. Between these accounts hangs the fate of everything. The stage for the contest becomes therefore both physical and philosophical. Knull brings the blunt instrument of annihilation, and a contagion that turns civilizations into erasures. Galactus arrives as an institutional inevitability, a hunger that is terrifying because it is necessary and because it converts, not simply kills. Both actors have histories of severing celestial dignity and bending cosmic scales, and both leave trails that make philosophers on lesser worlds weep or rage. The true question that will decide their clash is not only which arm is stronger, but whether the universe's architecture favors a relentless negation or a terrible, remorseless appetite that can fold negation into its own digestive calculus. The night of the meeting will therefore be a trial of metaphysics in muscle and starfire, where every blow is an argument and every victory a principle proving itself the more durable truth.